I'm excited to be here with you guys and have this little behind the scenes conversation. I mean, there's so much that goes into building a book of business with insurance, with building an agency, and really essentially building a business. I think a lot of people tend to forget about the importance of the spouse, right? Their partner, and not just watching them build this business, build new opportunity, but also bear the same stressors that come with life and that come with building a business. So, Javon, Bridget, I'm very grateful and thank you guys for letting me host this conversation. And I'm excited to dig into everything.
But yeah, you're right. It definitely is worth it, but it was not easy, right? I think a lot of the recruits that and the new agency owners that we are meeting and haven't met yet might look at Bridget and I and see the polished, the very successful, but not quite sure what it took to get there. And also love to hear Bridget's point of view of what that journey was like because it's a different point of view on that side. I know I wouldn't have been able to steer the ship. I have a lot of advantages by Bridget being able to take care of the household and take care of her mom and take care of the boys and allowing me to be as stress free from everyday normal things that a lot of people don't have that luxury from to build a business. I'm a little nervous and scared to hear as well, Forrest. So, hey, we're all here. This is why it's the Fireside Chat. Meet the owners.
Don't
Oh,
be nervous.
absolutely.
I got you.
Well, Bridget, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, some of your favorite hobbies, and then let's jump into when did Javon kind of bring you into the business?
I've been born and raised here in South Carolina. Never lived any other state besides here. I love to read, shopping occasionally, but reading is my thing. I'm more introverted than, anything. And kind of hanging out with my boys and my family is, I think, my favorite thing to do, especially now that they're older. I enjoy spending more time, hanging out with them.
Fantastic. That's pretty hard to beat right there. What point did Javon kind of bring you in and into the insurance business and really say like, "Hey, I need your help. I want to bring you in. How can I convince you?"
Well, we had he just closed the store that he'd opened back in 2014, his power sports store that he speaks about, all the time. And we were maybe like 3 months after it closed. He filed bankruptcy and all of that. And he came and brought me this ad that he saw in, these bunch of videos. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. It's, 100% commission. We don't need that right now. And I think it's a
Hmm.
scam. I really did think it was a scam. I wanted no
Oh
parts
yeah.
of it. I'm like, no, you need to find a job, go back to the car business, whatever it is you need to do. But no, at that time, I didn't know it that, but our house was in foreclosure. I didn't find out about that until later on. He was like, but no, I really think this is the thing. And I really want to do it. Well, you know what? You do without me because I don't want any parts of 100% commission. We need a guaranteed check to come in here.
Yeah, that's a very tough conversation. And I mean, that sounds right on brand for Javon sending, "Hey, look at all these ads, look at these videos. What do you think?"
He's like, I want you to watch this video with me. And no, I don't want to. I saw, I think maybe like the first 3 minutes. I was like, no, I'm not interested. I don't want anything to do with this.
Javon, once you got your no, what was the next step?
I'll be honest, I remember I couldn't even believe that she said no. Like, honestly, it was like, what do you mean, no? Like, this is everything that we're looking for. I would say that first few months, it was like she became the I'm gonna prove you wrong person for me. I'm gonna prove to you that this is not a scam. I can be successful at it because when you file bankruptcy, it's so embarrassing, but you never really realize you're going to get there and you lose a little bit of entrepreneurial hope. My bankruptcy was due to my business. You don't want nothing to do with business ever again. Don't want to touch it. But I saw that this business had two things that would have had in that previous business I'd have still been open. I didn't have to pay employees because the team, they get paid for what they earn and who they help. And I didn't have to deal with inventory because there's no shortage of life insurance out here in the world. So not having to deal with inventory, not having to deal with payroll, I just saw it as the perfect fit. And I could just help people and show them what I'm doing. And we just help people. She's right. Like it was, I just couldn't believe it. That was the battery up front that was probably very unhealthy because I felt that I was virtually unemployable. I couldn't go back to the car business where I was just adamant about never returning. At that time, that was when Bridget was actually working at that time. And that was the first time since we agreed for her to just take care of the boys. So she's saying no in real estate, but she's working and I'm selling houses, being the best realtor I can be. And they're like, 2 houses a month is amazing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. I'm not used to this slow money at all. And I don't like real estate like that. So, okay, this is going to solve the problem. And then she turned it down. So I know now that a lot of people would never be able to do such a thing. The spouse says, no, I know it's a losing battle, but that was tough. I don't recommend it. It was
Yeah.
tough.
I've had similar conversations with my spouse as well. It's a very valid viewpoint, right, Bridget? You're in a position where you're coming off of this loss, and now you're starting to look at this so-called opportunity that is 100% commission, meaning there's no guaranteed paycheck. It is you make whatever you make. Why take that risk at that time?
For me, was that my question?
Yeah.
Ego,
Whereas,
honest Forrest, ego. It was pure ego. When I walked into this business, I had the biggest ego. I just finished an operation and I was the boss. And now you want me to go back to something that I left. And it was a chip on the shoulder ego. And that hurt both sides. It was good to start, but it was very rough and hurtful when it came to the learning curve of it because I didn't listen to my mentors. And thank God both of them were so patient with me because they came from the same kind of world. But you got to have a little bit of crazy to really bet on yourself when you're so stuck down. That was my point of view. I don't know what Bridget saw.
I was like stuck, like, is he really about to do this after everything that we're sitting here going through? Bills are piling up. We had one kid in elementary school and one kid was home. So thank God we didn't really have like a daycare bill or anything like that. And I was
mhm.
working. And I'm just like, we have to eat, we have to pay bills. And you are really just gonna do this and not just have a paycheck coming in. And I was angry with him for a very, very long time about that.
And for perspective, what does a long time actually look like?
Well, a long time actually looks like I didn't even go to a conference until he was 2 years in.
Oh,
Two
wow.
years in the business is when I went to my first national conference. I was angry about it for a long time. I was here, I did what I needed to do,
Mhm.
kind of half support. But when I went to my first conference is when I kind of saw everything. I couldn't see it from his point of view because I'm like, we need to make it. We don't have anybody that we can lean on. It's just us. And you're telling me that you're going to go into this business and we have $200 in our checking account and mortgage and everything else that we need to pay.
I think that's sitting through those conversations myself. What advice would you give, Bridget, for other people that are kind of in that same situation? They just haven't had that sit down, big conversation of like, hey, this is what I'm doing, or this is what I've already been doing. How do people navigate that kind of conversation? Because it can be pretty rough.
Yes, that conversation can be very rough. But for us, a little bit of context with it, I was so hesitant about it was because I didn't find out about the business being opening until after it was open. So there was a little bit of trust there that was missing. And because we're here 2 years later and the business closed, and you're looking like, well, this is what we're doing next. But there is no plan. There is, nothing in place to help us get out of this hole that we're in. So I had to go back to trusting my husband enough to take care of what he needed to take care of. And that trust was lost because I didn't know about the original business. Found out about it from someone else. So I'm like, okay, I live in the house with him. So how do I not know, all these things are taking place? So I think I was so closed-minded to this business in the beginning is because I just didn't have that trust that he would handle what he needed to handle.
Were there boundaries that you guys set in place during or after that conversation of like, hey, I understand if you're doing this, these are the rules that, no, I won't quote my wife, but these are the rules that we're playing with. And if you break these rules, then these are the consequences. Did you guys have that kind of conversation?
Think we did.
Not
I
really.
just think when I after I went to that first conference and my first conference and saw what needed to be done, I recognized that he wasn't doing exactly what he needed to do to make sure he was successful in this business. So when I saw it, that's when I went in on him. No, you're not making your dials. No, you're not doing this. You need to get up and you need to get this done if you truly want to do this. And if this is going
Yeah.
to work and you don't want to go back to being an employee, you have to do better with this.
How was that conversation?
I remember it. I was sleeping and on a Saturday when we were supposed to be dialing, and she's like waking me up. You need to dial. And I'm like, I got 3 appointments. I'm good. Like, they said 15. I got three. And I was like, wow, I got a drill instructor. Now she knows the business. And sometimes that's the kick that's necessary and needed because sometimes we say we work hard and we're really not working until the person that's like you're doing this for is like, you're really not, you're really not doing what they told you to do, but you're always blaming the business while you're not where we are supposed to be. It was one of those very difficult conversations, but we wouldn't be here without it because in my mind, I was doing everything that they said to do.
You saw the opportunity. I don't want to call it a failure, but the closing of a different opportunity. What made you say yes to insurance?
It was funny because I said yes to mortgage protection because I was in real estate after the power sports store closed. And when we closed the store, I asked who wanted to go to real estate school because I watched $1 million listings for a week and thought everybody made 80 grand a transaction and everyone was like Frederick. And I said, oh, well, I'm going to take real estate classes. Who wants to go while I have this little bit of money left before they take it all? And only three of us decided to go to real estate. So when I saw the ad about mortgage protection, I'll be honest for us, it didn't even click that it was life insurance until after I got my license. I was like, oh, so okay.
How did you take the test not realizing it was
It
insurance?
was the way it was explained is I help homeowners put protection on their property. Right? Because when I heard life insurance, I just heard of death and funerals and talking about death all day. But with mortgage protection, I can talk about staying in the home all day. Right. So it wasn't just until later on. I remember one of my good friends was trying to invite me to an insurance meeting. And I was like, I'm not talking about death all day. And I don't want to do insurance. And that was like the biggest, like, oh, okay, that's final expense. I don't want to do a final expense. I want to deal with mortgage protection. So it kind of found me because of that marketing conversation of the difference between mortgage protection, life insurance, and final expense. But all of that really changed heavily when I got into it.
How bumpy was those first 2 years before you went to your first conference?
It was pretty bumpy. It really was pretty bumpy because in the beginning, after he did get his license, he was still doing real estate at the same time. So he was trying to navigate both, and we still didn't have a lot of money coming in. We were making it enough to get the mortgage paid. But I think what clicked for him is when I showed him that light bill and we didn't have enough money to pay the light bill that month. And every time that's like a running joke between us now. I'll always make jokes about, well, we can get an extension on the light bill this month, and you could just see everything just drain from his face. That is just the one thing that I think really just put the battery in his back. He always says that it's me, but I know when I told him that, well, we got to pick what we're going to pay this month. Is it going to be the light bill or I can't remember what the other thing was. And he was like, what do you mean we
It
can't
was
pay the light bill?
leads.
Well,
It was
sir,
it was light bill or leads.
it was light bill or leads. Yes. Well, sir, we're gonna have to figure it out, or we're not gonna have lights tomorrow. So that's always our running joke about the about the light bill, because I know that was the one thing that really made him go for it. He actually made his decision to, I think, go full force with insurance and kind of pull away from real estate.
That pivot or that fork in the road is tough. Massive ego check. It is a proof is quite literally on this paper that what you are doing is not working. Javon, how did how did you recover from that? Because I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, a lot of people just kind of get crushed by that and just kind of fall back and just let the weight be there and they don't actually do anything.
I think for me, I knew I was gonna, it's all about betting on yourself. And I knew I was going to get better with it. I knew I was going to get better, but man, it was just so tough because activity wins here. So I just had to, one thing about it, like most people are not going to outwork me at all. But the problem was the work didn't come faster than the next 30 days of bills. So I would do only enough to pay a bill. And it really was just reconditioning my mind, getting out of that just poverty work ethic, do enough. Like she'll tell me, like Bridget will sit there and tell me the list that's going through, and that'll be the motivation. That's what the goal is, the bills that's coming through. I knew I need my leads, and that would just be enough. If the bills got paid and she was quiet, it was kind of time to take your foot off the gas. So I was still stuck in that impoverished work ethic. Not mindset, because you can't have an impoverished mindset in investing. It was just an impoverished work ethic. That took a lot when when we were in the business. And another pivotal point was when we had to like send our sons up with my aunts to enjoy vacation. And we had to stay back because I didn't do what I needed to do to be able to afford a vacation. And we always went away for a weekend or 4 days or a week. And this time my aunts were like, just send the boys with me and you stay, and do what you needed to do. And that was like ride to see them, sit them, meet them at the exit gas station, and we ride back. And I knew she was steaming. She didn't say anything. That's when you like just steaming hot. And it was just enough to barely get by, and then they're sending pictures about them at the resort, and we still have those pictures, with them at the resort. And I just kept looking at those pictures and putting like, this will never happen again. Just a big combination of all of that came into like ego too big to go back, right? I'm not going to tell my old employers I was wrong. I tried to do my own dealership. I tried to do real estate and I tried to do insurance, but please take me back. That was not happening. Good at insurance is not getting good at anything but being yourself and being the better person. Being good at insurance is not knowing a product or carrier or selling. It's about the discipline habits to probably be successful in any other industry. What did it take to get good at insurance? It meant waking up early, journaling, meditating, reading self-development books. Hence those four things, nothing said go learn about writing a policy. So this was a growth change that had to take place to get good at insurance, right? It had nothing to do with insurance. And I didn't even realize it until it was happening. You don't recognize it because deposits are coming, deposits are going out, deposits coming. So you think you're doing good at insurance. As soon as a deposit hit, a bill hits. Like, oh my goodness. Sometimes the bill hit before the deposit hit. Like, oh my goodness, what in the world?
Yeah, gotta love that bill tag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was kind of like for me to get good at insurance was meaning be a better husband, be a better dad, be a better son, be a better all of the above, because that translates into your production. And if you're attractive to build a business here.
Let's now jump back in 2 years. You've been on this personal development path with insurance. You're putting the work in. You've got 3 appointments. You just went to a conference. And now, Bridget, you went to this conference with him, and you're seeing what they suggest or what they tell people to do. And you're looking over at your shoulder at Javon going, what the hell is he doing all day?
Exactly, because you are not doing any of that.
How, what was your initial approach to start getting Javon to moving a little bit quicker and putting in more dial time?
Like you said, that Saturday, I think that was like maybe 2 weeks after we got back from conference. Like he was laying in bed just relaxed. I got 3 appointments for the week, sir. That's not gonna work. we need to get more. You're not doing what they said that you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be dialing. You're supposed to be scheduling at least 20 appointments to, to set up for your week. Like, what's going on? Well, I'll get up and I'll do it in a little bit. No, I think we need to get up and do it now. So I kind of became, he calls me a drill sergeant, but I said cheerleader at the same time, like trying to motivate him. But I guess my way of motivating wasn't working for him. But eventually, when I started helping him with it, as far as when he was making his appointments or I cheer him on or whatever, it became easier for him to get up and say, okay, let me go knock this out. I can do this.
I think, I mean, having gone through the boot camp experience, I would say, looking back, I would say in their own way, drill sergeants are absolutely cheerleaders in their own way. They really know how to motivate you to get things done. That is for sure. I feel like in today's world, one of the big hurdles that two spouses, partners would be facing in that situation is Javon, your ego, right? Because you've been doing this thing for 2 years. You, quote, know the business, right? And Bridget comes with you to one conference, and now all of a sudden she's telling you what to do and she's calling the shots. What did you think about that? How did you decide to act?
Well, I didn't have no choice because, like she said, I opened the previous business, the power sport business, behind her back, which was a no-no. So I vowed to never open another business without full support. And it wasn't full support, but it was without full knowledge, I should say. So now that she's giving support, again, it was a necessary evil to get better, and all parties involved were going to be positively affected. At that point, for us, you don't care about how I feel when you broke. Like I don't remember how it felt. I just know I wasn't going to quit, right? And I think that was the one thing that I would hope that Bridget saw, that it don't matter how bad it was, how far back against the wall we got. I had her permission to quit, right? She gave me an out, when it was just so hard and unbearable with ego crushing. And it becomes like, this is where conference calls became so required, because I knew that my upline and I knew the people in Symmetry had what I wanted, where I was going to go back to work for. They did not have what I want. We all sat together and complained about not having what we wanted. It was really just like, I'm not going to quit. She didn't walk around slamming stuff all day, but it wasn't encouraging for 2 years. She was like, I'm gonna show her. You see that deposit, babe? You see that? You see, like, it was like in your face, kind of that. That is so unhealthy. It is so unhealthy.
Yeah, please do not do that.
Don't do that, but it's what pushed it forward, like prove you wrong. And it might not be your spouse that you have to prove wrong. It might be your parents. It might be your uncle, the old insurance guy that thinks that, like, it might be someone in your life that you got to push through. We can share war stories back and forth, but that was just, I think she respected the fact that it no matter what came up, chargeback, no problem. Expected a deposit, no problem. It didn't come through, no problem. Like, it sucks. I'm frustrated, but we don't have to clock in for anyone. No one is expecting us. I get sick, no one's asking permission. I don't need a doctor's note. And that right there for us was the ultimate of what I was searching for. And I always had someone to call to help me through wherever part of the business I was in. Now, did I take their advice like I took her advice? Absolutely not. Right. As soon as I hung up the phone, I knew more than them. But she saw the behind the scenes, and you can live on the leaderboards. They say leaderboards are for show, issue paid is for dough, meaning I can show that I wrote $20,000 and only had 5,000 deposit. Well, Bridget's going to know what really happened. I just understood that it was all for the greater good, and definitely it's funny sitting back to see how it all transpired and how we here by the grace of God, because one blow up, one argument, you're like, you know what, one given, we wouldn't have made it through COVID. If I was on the car lot, we wouldn't have made it through so many industries crushed, right? By just,
Mhm.
committing to getting better. It was a commitment to her to get better too, right?
Yeah.
Back then we were going house to house. I'll leave and take the last piece of gas that I have to come back empty-handed. And I just remember, like, I'm going to get good at this. And I can hear her excitement of, did you get? And it's like, oh, okay, next, you get it next. And you do that too many times. It's like, what are you doing? So it was just like, I'm going to get good at this. I'm going to get good at this. Right.
Yeah. Bridget, you're now on board. We're 2 years in. You're starting to making sure Javon's being sharp, right? Iron is sharpening iron. What was the next milestone? What was the next goal that you guys had in mind? Because, I mean, there's definitely, now that you guys are both on the same page, you're kind of working a little bit more in sync, problems and challenges still come up. So, what was the next milestone that you guys shot for?
The next milestone was for him getting his promotion. I think back then is when you started at 60%, right?
Yeah, I think it was agency ownership for when you came on board.
Yeah, so he had already hit, you were already a key leader when I came on board. So that was when he was working toward becoming an agency owner. And it took him, I think, 3 tries. The third time you finally got it, right? Because the first 2 times we were still trying to get in sync because that was when schedules was off and all of that stuff was taking place. But finally, when we got in sync, got a schedule, knew what our each of our roles were, he finally hit it, agency ownership. It was the third go round.
Feel like
So
third or fourth. I just
I think it was
it's
third. I think it was
painful.
the third.
Well,
Yeah,
folks, you heard it here first.
You try, you get, oh my goodness, that was some pain.
yeah, that was.
What is this mile marker just for
For those,
everyone who's watching?
yeah, so agency ownership, we have the opportunity, and we still give this opportunity to have your legacy, locked in, to where you own your book of business. You own, it could be passed down to your family, to my sons, to my wife. With the previous business, I wiped out our 401k, so we had no retirement. So we're starting from scratch. And the company, Symmetry, offers us the opportunity to continuously get compensated for all of our work while we're here. True contractual ownership of our agency. We can work for together, and our youngest son can still earn income, or our oldest son can continually get deposits if the Lord calls us home. And that was very, very important because I had to start fresh. Like, it was a blind rage of, that was where it's like solidified, this is yours.
Yeah, that's a being able to have that book of business ownership is something that not everyone gets.
Only
It's a
5% of the
very
company.
unique opportunity, and it is definitely one that stamps a legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.